Hello and welcome back to my channel. Have you ever wondered why certain things happened the way they did? I know I have. And sometimes these unanswered questions can keep us up at night. Well, not tonight. That's right. Today we're going to uncover some of the mysteries of our past. From pirates to presidents, from civil rights to cold cases, here are 10 untold stories about U.S. history you won't learn anywhere else. You ready? Let's get started. Number 1. The United States has had 2 official national anthems. Yes, you heard that correctly. Before the Star-Spangled Banner became our go-to patriotic tune, another song held that esteemed title. Can you name that song? Pause the video and write your answer in the comments. Do you know it? Well, if you said America, my country, 'tis of thee, you would be correct. This tune was officially designated as the national anthem in 1931, but it only held the title for a little over a decade. It was replaced by the Star-Spangled Banner in 1941. Fun fact, the melody for America, my country, 'tis of thee is actually an adaptation of a popular English drinking song called the Anvil Chorus. Now that's a twist. Number 2. Where did the Liberty Bell crack? It didn't. Okay, hear me out. This iconic American symbol, which now resides in Philadelphia, was actually shipped to London in 1790 to be displayed at the British Institute of London. The bell cracked sometime after its return to Philly. So why is it called the Liberty Bell? Because it was used to call people to the Pennsylvania State House, now known as Independence Hall, where the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution were debated and adopted. But that wasn't the name of the bell when it arrived in Philadelphia in 1752. It was called the State House Bell. The name changed in the early 1800s when the bell began to symbolize American independence and freedom. And that famous crack? It happened in 1846 during an attempt to ring it for the 4th of July celebrations. Talk about a party foul. Number 3. The assassination of Abraham Lincoln was not the first time an American president was targeted. Andrew Jackson, the 7th President of the United States, was the target of an assassination attempt on February 1835. A man named Richard Lawrence approached Jackson with 2 pistols, but both failed to fire. Was it a plot to end the controversial president's life, or a botched attempt by an unstable individual? Well, Lawrence was indeed unstable. He was committed to an insane asylum after the incident and died there in 1849. As for President Jackson, he survived the attack and went on to serve his full term, leaving office in 1837. But this wasn't the last time a sitting president would be in danger. On June 1865, just 5 months after Lincoln's tragic assassination, an Ohio congressman named Robert Lincoln Cox planned to kill President Johnson. Thankfully, the First Lady stopped him in his tracks. Cox's plan involved shooting Johnson and replacing him with Vice President Hannibal Hamlin as president. Then he would declare the border states independent and start a war. Yeah, no one's quite sure what his master plan was either. Number 4. Did you know that before Alaska became the 49th state, it was almost the 47th? That's right. Arizona and New Mexico almost beat Alaska to statehood. Arizona officially applied for statehood in 1910, and New Mexico followed suit in 1912. Both territories met the requirements set forth by Congress and were pretty much ready to join the Union. So why did they wait until 1912 and then ultimately lose to Alaska? Well, there were a lot of factors. For starters, Congress didn't want 2 separate Hispanic states. They wanted them to join as one large state. But the people living in those areas didn't want that. They were happy being separate. But ultimately it comes down to politics. In the Senate, President Woodrow Wilson didn't support either territory becoming a state, likely because he didn't want to upset the balance of power in the Senate. When Alaska was discovered to have substantial natural resources, Congress got behind that statehood effort. Plus, it was during World War II. So Congress wanted as many people as possible to become U.S. citizens and vote. Alaska's proximity to Russia also played a role, giving Congress the idea of having a state right next to the Soviet Union. Oh, those wacky politicians, no. 5. How do you like your eggs? Scrambled, sunny side up, poached, maybe over easy. Well, whichever way you take yours, it's safe to say you probably don't want them raw. But in 1906, Raw eggs were all the rage, thanks to one man, John Harvey Kellogg. This physician and health advocate believed that eating raw eggs could cure everything from neurasthenia to impotence. His method consisted of eating a raw egg every day for 40 days. But even though this practice was popularized at his Battle Creek Sanitarium in Michigan, it didn't last long. Why? Well, Kellogg's methods were extreme, to say the least. His sanitarium offered treatments such as harsh diets, enemas, and isolation. So eating a raw egg a day was kind of the least weird thing he recommended. And besides, who wants a raw egg anyway? Number 6. Not all superheroes wear capes, but some do. Meet Daniel Inouye, a U.S. Army soldier who received the Medal of Honor for his actions in Italy during World War II. What makes his story unique? Well, as a member of the 442nd Regimental Combat Team, the Inouye soldiers faced prejudice both abroad and at home. See, the Inouye were second-generation Japanese Americans, and they faced discrimination from the start. They were forced into internment camps, then told they couldn't fight for the country that had taken their freedom. But they proved their loyalty in spades, fighting with honor and bravery. Inouye saved countless lives while sacrificing his own arm in the process. He was awarded the Medal of Honor in 1945, 25 years after receiving the Distinguished Service Cross. Sadly, he passed away in 2012, but his legacy lives on through the Congressional Medal of Honor and a middle school in Hawaii named in his honor. Number 7. The story of Sacagawea, the Native American woman who helped Lewis and Clark on their expedition to the Pacific Northwest, is a well-known one. But what a lot of people do not know is that she didn't die with her tribe in the 1800s. Sacagawea actually lived until 1884. That's a pretty long time for someone whose death occurred in the 1800s. Born in 1788, she died at the age of 96. She's not the only person whose death year is wrong. A lot of historical figures have incorrect dates associated with them, and it's not always human error. Sometimes the records were never kept, and in other cases the records were lost. Like in Sacagawea's case, she died in a remote village in Idaho and no one reported it. Her exact date of birth is also in question. Most historians believe it was somewhere around 1788, but no one knows for sure. Number 8. Who doesn't love a good mystery? Mary Shelley's Frankenstein is a classic tale of scientific ambition gone awry. But did you know that the author was inspired by a real-life event? Yeah, in 1816, a scientist named John Franklin set out to find the Northwest Passage, a sea route connecting the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans through the Arctic. His ship, the Erebus, and his crew never returned. But Franklin's body was found years later. See, he'd perished before the ship froze and the crew starved to death. But that's not the crazy part. The crew resorted to cannibalism, eating Franklin's body and the corpses of others who died on board. It was this dark tale that inspired Shelley to write Frankenstein. And if you think that's messed up, wait till you hear number 9. Number 9. Prohibition was a time when the sale, manufacture, and transportation of alcohol were prohibited in the United States. But despite this ban, alcohol was still being consumed. How? Well, that's where the moonshiners came in. These bootleggers made and sold illegal liquor, often in secret stills hidden in remote locations. One of the most infamous moonshiners was a man named Marvin Scheimer. Also known as Babyface Nelson, Scheimer was a violent criminal who made a fortune during Prohibition. But his reign of terror ended in a shootout with federal agents in 1934. Speaking of Prohibition, did you know that during this time the U.S. government employed female agents to catch criminals? They were known as the G-Girls. These undercover agents posed as civilians to infiltrate illegal establishments and gather intelligence. One of the most successful G-Girls was Imogene Dennis Ryan. She worked for the Treasury Department's intelligence unit and was known for her beauty and charm. Undercover, she gathered information that led to the arrests of numerous gangsters, including Al Capone himself. That's one way to put some bang in your Bacchus. Number 10. What comes to mind when you think of the Wild West? Cowboys, saloons, train robberies. How about dancing bears? Yep, dancing bears were all the rage back in the 1800s. These bears were trained to perform various tricks, including dancing, for the amusement of crowds. The bears would be dressed up in costumes and encouraged to dance with the help of music and hand signals. Eventually, these shows became popular in carnivals and circuses across the country, But where did it all begin? Well, it started with a German immigrant named Frank Bostock. He began training bears in the late 1800s and eventually assembled a troupe of dancing bears that toured throughout the United States. His performances were a huge hit, and dancing bears quickly became a sensation. But the popularity of these shows didn't last forever. As animal rights activists began to speak out against the mistreatment of bears, these dancing acts were eventually banned, and the tradition came to an end. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Which fact surprised you the most? Were you totally shocked? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe and click the notification bell so you are the first to know when we release new videos. Until next time, stay curious.